Welcome everyone to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad you're able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about this thing that I call the humility advantage, which is really focused on 7 strategies that, different ways that you can stay grounded and use that to accelerate your growth. This is to show you how staying humble, it actually amplifies your growth and your impact, how admitting when you don't know everything makes people trust you even more, not less. How asking questions makes you appear more competent, not incompetent. Now, I've got some scenarios, some questions, some things that really ground this for people and make them see what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know, maybe you're a parent feeling the pressure to be perfect. Like, the parent who always knows what to do, how to show up, but deep down, you're constantly second guessing yourself, but you're afraid to admit it to anybody because when you, if you're struggling or if you need guidance from others or parents or, from experts, what does that say about you as a parent? What are people going to think about you? Or perhaps maybe you're an entrepreneur who believes you need to project this unwavering certainty to investors or clients or your team. And this makes it really hard to look for feedback or mentorship that could accelerate your growth and prevent costly mistakes. Or maybe you're an employee who's worried about asking questions or admitting knowledge gaps because you think they're going to hurt your career advancement. So you stay quiet when, input could improve your performance and help you stand out as someone genuinely invested in excellence. Now, here's what I've learned. And I say these things because I've learned it through my own journey as well as helping thousands of other people, that true humility isn't about downplaying your abilities or being self-deprecating in any way. It's about maintaining curiosity and openness to growth while you're using your gifts and your superpowers. This actually is going to accelerate both your learning and your impact. And so we're going to dive deep into this today. Of course, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder, I'm the author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. Everything we're talking about today is going to be grounded in principles that I teach inside of this book. It came out in November, and ever since it came out, it has been an Amazon bestseller. We've had thousands of people go buy it, and the biggest thing is I love seeing all of the 5-star reviews and the comments people make as it pertains to the book. So I'm going to put a link to the book down in the description. I highly recommend you go get yourself a copy. It's the best $10 that you could invest in yourself for the, to make sure that you're having the most impactful year of your life and setting yourself up for future impact, more fulfilled, more fulfillment in your day-to-day life, and deeper, more meaningful relationships. So that's the Giver Method. You can get on Amazon. I'll put the link down below. I'm also put links to other places where you can find us on social media: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or at thegivermethod.com. Now, as I said, all of it's grounded in the Giver Method, and I talk a lot in there. I've lived this exact struggle. Okay. I've lived this struggle of trying to pick through, being concerned about what you're saying and such. Early on, I felt like I had to have all the answers for clients. I would spend hours preparing for calls, terrified someone's going to ask me something that I couldn't answer perfectly. And then one day a client asked really technical issue that I'd never encountered before. And instead of deflecting or pretending knowledge, I just, I know I didn't have, I just said hey, that's a great question. And I want to give you the best answer. Let me do a little bit of research and get back to you tomorrow. That client later told me that moment of honesty is what convinced them that they're working with the right person, that they wanted to be with someone who either knew the answers or was willing to go find the right answer, not pretending to know everything. That experience taught me that my willingness to learn openly was actually a competitive advantage, not a weakness. And so today I want to walk you through these 7, like I said, the strategies and ways that you can harness humility, to take advantage of it. And these aren't, they're not designed to diminish yourself in any sort of way, which a lot of people think when they're willing to admit these sort of faults or problems. These are about combining your expertise and genuine curiosity in ways to make you both more effective and more trusted. Now, of course, as always, I always tell people, if you find this valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. I don't want you to miss out on any of the content I share. I do videos all week long throughout the week sharing them on how you can discover your gifts and superpowers and make the impact that only you were born to make. Live a more fulfilled life, have deeper, more meaningful relationships. So please like the video, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and of course, comment your thoughts along the way, as well as hey, I'd love that if you grab yourself a note, a piece of paper, open up a note app, whatever, so you can jot down thoughts that come to you while we're working through these principles, okay? So let's dive in, let's get rolling without any more delay. Our first principle is about this authentic strength inventory that I want you to do. You know what you know, own what you don't know, right? Like, just know what you bring, and it's okay that, like, to say, like, I may not have some skill yet. You know, so as we kick this off, like, we don't hear it enough. Like, you don't have to know everything to be trusted. One of my favorite quotes is by an author, what he says is like, you don't have to be at the top of your field or the best at the thing to be considered an expert. If you know more than I do and you're willing to teach me and provide me value on that, like, you're an expert to me, and too many people don't think of it through that lens. You know, you are an expert. You can be trusted by not knowing everything. You just have to know what you actually do know and be honest on what you're still figuring out or working on. You know, most of us get, like, stuck swinging between two extremes. Like, you know, we downplay the stuff that we're actually good at. Like, you know, it's nothing, you know, it's whatever. It's just, everyone knows how to do that, right? You know, even though we've put years into developing that skill, or we pretend we've got something handled because we're too afraid to admit to admit otherwise to ourselves or other people, that, you know, because we're afraid it's going to make us look weak or unqualified. Does that sound familiar to you? Like, but here's the deal. Neither of those postures build real trust. You know, not with your team, not with your kids, not with yourself, friends, family members, coworkers, community, anything like that. The people around you don't need you to be a superhuman. They just need you to be real. You know, when you can say, like, hey, this is something I'm confident in, and, like, here's an area I'm still working on. Here's the path I'm going through. Here's my journey of learning. Like, without flinching, you stop performing, you just start leading. So, like, here's how you take this principle and make it real. You know, even if you're busy and stretched thin, like I said, which I understand as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a person who's working, grinding away, like, time is thin. And so I really want to dive into that, you know? And so this one's an easy one to try. What I want you to take 10 to 15 minutes, maybe while you're, you know, waiting in the school pickup line, or maybe after you've wrapped up your last meeting. And I want you to think about, like, this idea of, like, your strength and your stretch list. You know, maybe it's a note app, maybe it's a piece of paper, whatever it is, and you're just going to basically jot down these ideas around these questions, two separate areas. Number one is, like, what are the things that you know you're just genuinely good at, strong at, like, right now, that, like, you've got that gift, that skill. You know, what do people come to you for? What have you done that went really, really well? Even if it's, like, not flashy or formal, like, write it out. And then the second part is going to be like, well, where is your stretch zone? You know, where are you actively learning or testing or getting better at? And it might come up often. And write those down. You don't have to get fancy. Just write out, like, hey, I'm great at staying calm when my kids are melting down, and I'm strong at client relationships. I'm still figuring out how to delegate without guilt, and I'm, you know, working on trusting my gut, you know, in meetings. You know, just simple things like that. Start practicing saying it out loud, like, in real conversations. Like, you know, you say things like, you know, hey, I'm confident in, and, like, fill in the blank with your strength, like, and I'm working on that area of growth. Like, it's really simple, you know, things like, hey, I'm confident in my ability to coach my team, and I'm working on communicating big picture vision more clearly, or something like, hey, I know I can stay calm under pressure, but I'm learning how to speak up for what I need instead of just, like, powering through and just toughing through it. You know, the first few times you say it out loud, it's going to feel awkward because it's, you know, you're feeling scripted, but after that, it's going to become liberating. It's going to become part of just natural conversation. You know, this becomes a real big change for people. Because the truth is, people trust you more when they can count on your self-awareness. When there's that vulnerability and that authenticity, not when you always have the answer. Not when you fake confidence, but when you can name what you bring and own what maybe you're building without any sort of an apology. And that's what makes you more magnetic. You know, it's what makes people learn, because you're not hiding behind some impossible image. You're showing up as someone who's strong and real and still growing. And that's the kind of person others want to follow and work with and learn from. You know, so if you're tired of pretending you're either flawless or failing, like, try this instead. And know what you bring. You know, be okay with what you don't yet have and lead from there. That leads us to the second one, which is this, like, curiosity as, like, this, like, launch point approach. Like, transform knowing into learning and stop proving and just start asking. Because if we're honest, most of us walk into conversations feeling like we've got to come in with all the answers, right? We've got to be able to jump on whatever they say, especially when we are leading something. Your family, your business, your team, like, you feel like the people around you expect you to know, so maybe you start performing like you do know just to keep up that image. But the truth is, the people who actually create the most impact, they're not the ones doing all the talking. They're the ones asking the right questions. They're not showing up to prove how much they know. They're showing up learning something they didn't. And that small shift from proving to discovering, it's a real game changer for you. Like, I've seen it play out everywhere. Parents who stop assuming, and they just say to their teenagers, like, hey, what do you need from me right now? You know, what, like the moment builds so much more trust than any lecture could. Like the entrepreneur who says in a team meeting, like, hey, what are you seeing that I might be missing? You know, they've got better ideas. It's going to build a stronger team. It's going to make, you know, moves that you choose to move, like you choose to do, smarter. Because curiosity doesn't make you look like you're unqualified. It just makes you more magnetic. Now, how you do this in the real world, in day-to-day for yourself, is, you know, you want to do this without, like, I don't know, a bunch of stuff that you've already all stuff you already have packed on your plate, right? So start by just choosing one conversation this week, just and one, like I said, just one, where you intentionally go in with zero agenda other than to learn something. Maybe it's a meeting, maybe it's a one-on-one with your kid, maybe it's a quick call with a colleague, or even a customer conversation. And before it starts, ask yourself, like, what can I learn here? And when you get in the moment, practice the little move I call, like, it's basically question upgrading, you know, and it's where you turn your, you know, quick judgments into open doors. So instead of saying, like, you know, hey, that won't work, like, you pivot it and you say something like, you know, what would need to be true for this to work? And let it play out more. You know, instead of like, hey, I disagree with that, like, just, hey, help me understand, like, what you're seeing here. Make sure that I see that vision. Like, these sort of questions, they don't make you sound soft. They make you actually sound sharp. Like someone who's listening before you speak. And when you do this with your expertise, like, you could try simple, like, frame, like, hey, in my experience, you know, with this type of situation, I've seen this sort of thing happen. So I'd love to hear your take on it as well. Man, that line does two things all at once. Like, it's like, it signals that you're competent and collaborative at the same time. You're not shutting down the conversation, you're actually opening it up, because this is how you become someone people want to work with or grow with or trust or work for. Like, when you stop needing to be the one that has all the answers and you actually, like, get access to better ones. You know, you become the kind of parent that, you know, your kid confides in. You become the kind of leader people want to follow, and the kind of teammate who gets invited into real conversations, the ones that actually are going to move things forward. Like, and the beautiful thing is, it doesn't require more time by any means, just a different intention. And so the next time you feel like you're trying to prove something, you know, pause and ask instead, like, hey, because the people who ask better, like, the people ask better questions, like, they learn faster, they connect deeper, and they definitely make a bigger impact without needing to perform. So that transitions really well into the third principle, which is this, like, feedback acceleration system. Like, how do you turn input into advantage? Don't wait, like, don't just wait for feedback, like, invite it in. You know, feedback can feel scary, and I'm willing to admit that. Even if you want to grow, like, the idea of someone pointing out, like, where you're falling short, like, is not the most appealing thing in the world, especially when you're already stretched thin as a parent, business owner, or someone trying to, like, survive, you know, another 47 email workday, right? You know, but here's the flip side of it, and it's a big one. People who grow the fastest aren't the ones who wait around to be told what to fix. They're the ones who ask. Not out of insecurity, but, like, out of true curiosity. They don't see feedback as, like, a performance review. They see it as insight that they wouldn't have caught on their own, or maybe they wouldn't have caught on to as quickly. That sort of a shift changes things for you. When you seek feedback before it's needed, before the mistake, before the blow up, before the missed opportunity, you're not just avoiding the problems. You're actually inviting growth in. You're telling people around you, like, hey, I care enough about how I show up in this relationship, and I want to get better. And that's not a weakness. That's someone, you know, that's going to be someone you want to trust and be a part of what they're doing. So as we talked about, like, how we do this in the real world, like, how you can do this without turning into someone who's constantly asking, like, how am I doing? Like, you know, but you're not looking for, like, you're not fishing for the gold star. That's what we're trying to do. Like, you're not looking for that. So this is what your move is. Like, once a month, maybe, and like I said, once a month, just once, not, you don't have to go crazy. Have, like, some sort of a growth conversation with someone who knows you really well. It could be your spouse, a teammate, a mentor, or even your teenager. Pick somebody. And here's what I want you to say. But here's what I don't want you to say. You know, tell me everything I'm doing wrong. Don't say that. Here's some examples of things you can say. Here's what you do say instead. Like, hey, what's one thing I could do differently that would make working with me or living with me or parenting with me easier or better? You know, what's something I'm doing well that I might not realize is working? What's one way I could grow in how I handle the situations that come up? You know, keep it light and honest and specific. The goal isn't to get a full evaluation. It's just to get one new insight you wouldn't have seen on your own. If monthly feels like too much right now, then just start with a one-off. You know, use your next walk with the spouse, you know, or your next team one-on-one, or use a quiet moment with your kid to just ask, like, hey, how could I support you better right now? You know, you can even make this a rhythm in your home or your business where you turn like team check-ins into mutual coaching moments. One question, you know, to your family at the dinner table, like, you know, what's something that's helped you feel supported? You know, what's something that we could be doing better to help with that? Like, man, it's crazy how feedback becomes normal at that point, and it's no longer scary to you. You're actually going to thrive and seek it out. You know, because the thing is most people don't grow. They don't grow because they don't care. Like, that's not it at all. They don't grow because, like, they never get real input. They're waiting for those things, which don't come because people are so caught up in their own lives. When you become someone who invites feedback, people feel more connected to you and stop holding back. They trust, like, their voice matters to you, and they want to help you win, of course. You know, it's not about improvement in any sort of way. It's about deepening the relationship that, you know, you used to fuel life and fulfillment. You know, so don't wait for a performance review or a problem to come to the surface. Just ask one question at a time. That's how you start to turn feedback from something maybe awkward into something really powerful, you know, really powerful tool for trust and growth and connection. Now, the fourth principle is, like, you have to have some sort of a system, like a mistake recovery system. How you transform your errors into trust builders, and you have to own it, learn from it, and move forward. Mistakes aren't the enemy. Pretending you didn't make them is the enemy. You know, because if we're real with each other, we all mess up. I know it's hard to think that I mess up sometimes, but we do. We all mess up. We snap at our kids. We say the wrong thing in a meeting. You know, we make a call in our business that doesn't land the way we had hoped. Like, mistakes aren't the exception. They're the norm. They happen. The real question is, like, what do you do next? Now, most people go one of two ways when they mess up. They either pretend nothing happened and hope it slides under the radar, or they over-apologize so much that it becomes uncomfortable for everyone around. Which are you? Because you're going to fall into one of those two buckets. But there's a third way, you know, the way that actually builds trust faster than being mistake-free ever could. And it's this, like, I'm going to own it and learn from it. I'm going to show, like, what I'm going to do different next time. That's it. Super simple. It's not about dramatic apologies or self-shaming. It's about showing people that you're the kind of person who can handle being human without making everything, you know, else, like, everyone else responsible for your mess, you know, or needing them to fix it for you, you know. And you know what's really wild about this? Like, when you handle mistakes with this kind of clean honesty, people actually trust you more, not less, you know, because they know that you're going to tell the truth. They know, like, that you're going to take ownership of the things that you've done. They know that you do the work to grow, especially if you're a parent. Your kids are watching how you handle, like, being wrong. And if you pretend that you're never wrong, they're going to do the same. But if you show them that mistakes are a part of learning and that accountability and growth go hand in hand, you're giving them a model that is going to stick around with them for long beyond the season of life where they're with you. And so let's talk about how you do this without turning into, like, the walking apology book. Like, it's this idea of called, like, the clean recovery script. It's 4 simple parts, okay? Number 1, acknowledge what happened. Number 2, take ownership. No excuses, no finger pointing. Like, this is what happened. I did it. Share what you've learned, and then let them know how you're going to show up differently next time. So, wrote out an example here for you. I'm going to read it. So, sorry I blew up at you. I lost my cool during the conversation. I realized that I shut down instead of listening. I learned I need to pause and breathe before reacting. And next time I'm going to ask you what you need from me instead of just jumping into a fix-it mode and shutting off my listening skills. Like, weird, that's not an apology. That's leadership. You know, you could try this at home with your partner or with your kids. Use it in your team meeting when something didn't go as planned. Even in a one-on-one with your boss or client or whatever, you know, maybe when you realize you missed the mark. People don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be honest enough to admit that, you know, when you're not. I was wrong. And wise enough to use that moment to fuel yourself, not to use it as shame. you can build this like into regular rhythms. Start looking for like your like learning rounds, like a monthly check-in where like you share something that didn't go how you expected and what it taught you. You know, this makes like it works at a family level, team level, with a close friend. Like, it works so well. The more that you normalize talking about learning from missteps, the more that you can trust that that you're going to build the people who matter to you most. Now, the truth is, like, people don't trust the person who never messes up. They trust the person who handles it well when they do, who shares those things as a part of their experiences. Because when things get messy, and of course they will, that's the person they want in the room. The one who's grounded and honest and focused on making the right decisions, not hiding or blaming or spiraling out of control. Owning your mistakes isn't weakness, it's actually strength with depth. You know, it tells the world, like, hey, you can count on me not to be flawless, but to just keep growing. That's how you lead. That's how you build the deep respect. That's how you start transforming messy moments into moments that last and create such, massive impact. Now, of course, the fifth principle is about teaching while you're learning, sharing the learning process, not just the conclusions. Like, you teach as you go. You don't need to be the expert. Just a few steps ahead, and you're willing to show your work. That's all it is. People don't connect with your final answer nearly as much as they'll connect with the process. And that's true in marketing. It's going to be true in business. It's going to be true when you talk to your children. They want to know what you're trying, what you're learning, what worked, what bombed, what you're thinking about changing. Like, that's what creates connection. That's what makes you more trustworthy. So how do we do this? How do we make this real as we go? Okay, so start simple. Pick one area of life where you're in maybe a learning mode, something that you're actively working on. Maybe it's becoming more patient with your teenager. Maybe it's shifting your leadership style to give your team more autonomy. Maybe it's experimenting with new habits to avoid burnout, whatever it is. And just start sharing the process instead of waiting to share the solution. And no, you don't have to blast it out on social media unless that feels natural to you. But you keep it, just keep it small and personal. Try, at work, hey, here's a leadership tactic I've been trying during our meetings. Here's how it's gone so far. At home, you could be like, hey, we've been testing this new screen time routine, and honestly, I'm learning what works and what doesn't, and here's what's helped this week. Or like, even at a community level, like, hey, I've been diving into how to communicate better under stress, and here's something I've been practicing lately. When someone asks for advice, don't give them the polished headline. Give them the messy behind the scenes thing. We don't need the Instagram post. We want to see what you tried. What you noticed, how you adapted. That's teach as you go. Okay? You can even build this into your week. Start with these little learning loops. Space where you reflect on what you've learned and how you're going to share it. Maybe that's a quick voice memo to a friend, a short Slack message to your team, a couple sentences in your journal, whatever it is. Doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is that you start capturing and sharing the process, not just the outcome. What happens when you stop waiting to have it all figured out? People start to trust you more, not less. That's what we're hitting on. It helps you internalize your own growth when you explain what you're trying and why. It reinforces what you're learning, and it builds your momentum. It invites others to join you in that process, which makes the journey feel less lonely. And when you teach as you go, you shift from being someone who holds the answers to someone who multiplies growth, who helps others find their own path, showing yours, like what yours was in progress. And honestly, that's going to build so much more trust over time. So the sixth one, we got two left, 6 and 7. So the sixth one is like prospective partnership practice. Make others the expert of their own experience. Start with their map before you offer yours. This little shift that changes the way that I lead, parent, and hopefully coach forever. There was a time when I thought the best way to support someone was to just jump in with an answer to solve the problem and try to fix everything, give advice, and it came from a good place. I truly wanted to help. And maybe you've been there too, especially if you're the type of person who's wired to give and guide and get things moving forward. But here's the real thing to understand. One of the most powerful things that you can do to build trust and connection and actual influence isn't to be the answer giver. It's to become someone who starts with a real understanding of the other person's world. Because here's the deal, people are the experts of their own experience. Whether it's your kid wrestling with school stress, team member who's feeling overwhelmed, the friend that's stuck in their decision, they already have a ton of insight into what that is, and you need to understand it. There's a humility like this is where humility can become a superpower, is when you start seeing their map, where they're at, before you offer your own. You know, your advice becomes a way for more help, and it becomes a whole lot more welcome when you do it that way. And so what you want to do is the next time someone comes to you with a challenge, before you jump in with what worked for you, try this instead. Like, get curious, ask about their perspective first. Ask them something like, you know, well, what have you already tried? What's been helpful? What is support, like what support look like for you in this sort of a moment? You know, when we, like, this is called like the reality mapping, when you're not making assumptions, you know, to what they need. You're gathering actual context and straight from the source, you know, and then that's when it's time to offer input. Don't default to like, well, here's what you should do. Instead, like, hey, based off what you shared, like, I've seen this work in similar situations. Does that sound like it could fit here? Or something like, you know, here's something that helped me, and I'm curious, like, do you think that applies, or is something different here that I'm missing? Like, this super simple shift in from directing to partnering, right? It changes the entire tone of the interaction. And if you're a parent, like, this is gold. The next time your kid is struggling with a question, like, hey, well, what would feel helpful right now in this? And you'd be amazed how often they already know exactly what they need. You know, when you take this approach, people don't just feel helped; they feel honored. Honestly, like and that's what matters right there. That's where real influence is born. Stop being the person who already has the answers and all the pressure that comes with it. Instead, become the kind of leader or parent or friend that creates space for others to rise. And your guidance, it actually lands so much better because it's tailored to the truth of the way that they're living and how things show up to them. This sort of a practice, like, it flips the script totally. It shows others that their voice matters, that their experiences are valid, and that their growth doesn't have to come from the outside in. It can come from the inside out. You know, with you walking beside them instead of dragging them along. And so the next time someone brings something to you like that, like, don't reach for the map that you have just yet. Ask them about theirs first. Build the trust and the connection. Know that your guidance matters. That's how humility becomes one of the most effective tools in your ability to influence people. And of course, the seventh one, influence through the elevation strategy. Like, you build your impact by building others. It just goes hand in hand with that. You grow your impact by lifting others up. You know, and that might surprise you that influence doesn't grow by shouting louder. You know, it grows when people start whispering your name in rooms that you're not in, because you were the one that helped them grow. And that right there, that's what makes it, like, that's what this is all about. Real humility isn't about making yourself smaller. It's about using your gifts and your voice and your presence to make like others feel bigger. Remind them of what's already inside them and create the space for that. Like, it so much more impactful when people are saying and spreading your message, your vision, your purpose in other rooms because of the way you've helped them. You're building something bigger than your own success. You're building legacy level impact. And so, like, there's some super practical things you can do. Like, first, like, strength spotting. Once a week, like, minimum, look around the people that you live with, work with, that you lead, and intentionally name something they're doing right. Not just like, good job, but be very specific. You know, hey, the way you broke that down for the team, like, so clear, like, that's a real strength of yours. Or, hey, you handled the situation with so much patience, like, and I really admire that. Like, you can be amazed how many people go through their entire week, sometimes their entire lives, without hearing clear reflections of their strengths. Your words could be the moment that they start believing in themselves. And then there's the elevation of opportunities. Like, these are the moments where you can use your voice to create space for someone else. You know, introduce them to someone in your network. You know, mention their name in a meeting, suggest they lead the next presentation, or even just make sure that their idea doesn't get lost in the group chatter. It shows up in so many different ways. You know, you're not deflecting things away. You're demonstrating an awareness, team thinking, leadership skills when you do this, because here's what happens. When you build this into how you operate, people see you win. They remember that how you made them feel. They remember that you noticed them, and that, you know, that, gosh, you said their name when you didn't have to, right? Like, that you saw something good in them and you said it out loud. That's how, like, you're gonna build tons of credibility in a community. That's how, you know, respect becomes, like, more part of a relationship. That's how your influence becomes more effortless, because people trust your motives, not just your message. Now, I want to leave this with you because, you know, we've kind of gone through a lot of these topics. Like, humility isn't about shrinking. It's not about like any of that. It's about showing up real. and your real impact can actually grow. These sort of practices we walk through, they aren't about softening your edge or pretending you don't know anything. They're just about blending what you already know with the kind of openness that keeps you learning and connected and leading with what actually lands with people. So stop pretending you have it all figured out. Stop carrying the pressure to perform and start showing up, as someone who's strong because because you're still growing, right? Not in spite of it. Become the kind of parent your kids need and that they're going to feel safe around. And even when things get messy, become the entrepreneur whose team feels seen and heard and energized. Become that colleague people actually want to brainstorm with, because you're not trying to prove something, you're trying to build something. That's what humility does. It doesn't push your gifts to the background. It makes you more approachable, more trusted, and more impactful. Now, of course, if this hit home for you today and you want to make more real world tools, in your life, you want to put more real world tools in your life to help you grow without burning out or performing, you want to find those gifts and superpowers, then that's where, once again, go down in the description and get yourself a copy of the GIVER method. You're going to find these step-by-step strategies help you to unlock your gifts and use them to serve and lead and live with purpose. So I'll put the link down below. You can get it on Amazon. You can also check out thegivermethod.com. If you've got, a podcast, a community, a platform where this kind of message would help your people, then let's talk. There's a link down in the description where, we can talk about how we could serve together and build up your community. Now, I just want to leave you with this, of course, you don't have to have it all, you don't have to wait till you feel perfectly ready or have it all together. You don't need to have all the answers in any sort of way. You just need to be willing to ask the right questions and stay curious and be honest one step at a time as you move forward. That's how you grow with your impact without losing yourself. That's how you lead and love and live in a way that leaves a legacy. I'm so glad you were able to be here. Hopefully you can take some things away. Please leave your comments, thoughts in the comments, things that stood out to you or that you're going to take away. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will catch you in our next video. Have a great rest of your day.